Welcome to Peer Learning for You channel. Today we'll have the session Python Basics Part 2. If you have not seen the Part 1 of Python Basics, please feel free to check that. I'll add the link in the description. Apart from that, you can check other videos posted in this channel. I'll add them also in the description. So today we will mainly cover lists, tuples, loops, functions or methods, and how to create modules and how to use them. So let us start with list and tuples now, and let us understand what is list and what is tuple. So for this, I am going to open up with a terminal. You can use a command prompt if you're using a Windows machine. So as we have installed Python 3, I will use Python 3 here. So this will prompt you with the version name. It's 3.8.2 and 12.0 is the clang. So we will start writing creating the list and tuples in the terminal because it's easy to print it here rather than repeatedly write the print function. Okay, so let us understand what is list and tuples are. So list are the part of the compound data types or the data type which can accommodate homogeneous as well as heterogeneous items. That means it can have different types of objects and it can collect them within one object frame. So let us see some examples. Okay, for example, if I create a list, so you can create a list something like this, or you can have heterogeneous, like you can have homogeneous or heterogeneous list. So let us go with the heterogeneous one, where we can have a string, integer, a float. So I can have a mixture of everything. Okay, and let's have another list which is I'll name as tiny list, and I will name it I will fill it up with some data. Okay, so these are lists. Okay, now if I print this, like I can in this terminal I can just write savvy list and it is going to show me the output. I don't have to write print here, and that's why we are using terminal here for this list and tuple session. So you can actually access the list items through their index. So for example, if I do it something like this, I will get the first element. Okay, uh, it supports slicing also. So for example, if I write something like this, so this means that from the first index like 786 to the second index like 3 is there, so it's definitely not go till 3, it will go till the second occurrence. So 786 and 2.23 will get printed here. You can see here, and if you want to print the last number, last item, you can go with the -1. The last digit got printed. If you want to print something like from first to the last I want to print, you can do that also. Like you can start with 1 and you can make it, you don't specify any end index, it's going to print everything till the last. Okay, so now I can do like I can increase the content or I can decrease the content with mathematical calculations also. So for example, let me show you what I mean by this thing. So this is a tiny list, and this is a tiny list. So let me double the content. So if I do into 2 here, you can see it duplicates the content. And another thing I can do, I can actually add or I can add the contents of different list together also. Like I can add savvy list and tiny list together. So you can see both the list got appended. So this list, and you can play with the list. I'm just give you an introduction about what list can do. It's very similar to the string. And normally whenever we play with collection, we go with list. Now tuples are also very similar to list. And if I tell you like I can show you what a tuples are. So let me create some tuple and it will help me to explain things. So I can have the same content actually. So 786, then 2.23, 23, and here we have is FDSF. Okay. So only the difference you can see here is the parenthesis. Apart from that, there is no difference so far. I'll explain you everything. So let us create another tuple, which is known as tiny tuple, and let me again put some value to it, like for example, and you can see all this can accommodate heterogeneous objects together. So, oh, sorry, wrong parenthesis. Yeah. So if I print tiny tuple, this will be this. Okay. So in the tuples are also have the similar kind of features. So if I want to print the first element of a tuple, I can go with this number system, and I can do this. I can do the same thing that I did with the list. You can see. Again, I can actually I can multiply it, and I can have like I can duplicate the content. I can add two tuples together. Okay, so I can add two tuples together. Sorry, spelling mistake. Not very good with spellings. Uh, Now this shows that tuple and list are very similar to each other, but there are some significant differences. So let me explain you those differences. Lists are mutable in nature. So where tuples are immutable. So that means like we can modify a list, but we cannot modify a tuple. I can show you with an example here. So for example, X is a list, and I put some values to it. Okay. Now if I want to change any element, for example, I want to change the first index element into suppose 5, and then I print it, it become 1534. Okay. Now if I create a tuple, similarly 1 2 3 4, okay, and I try to modify the first element into 5, I'll get an error. So this shows that your tuple cannot be changed. Once you have created a tuple, you cannot change that tuple elements. Okay, so hence that is one of the main reason why lists are so commonly used. Apart from that, uh, what I suggest that if you have static content, then and you know that you're not going to change that collection much, go with tuple. The reason because tuple are smaller in size and list are bigger in size. So I can show you that also. Like for example, if I have two identical collections. Okay. So one is tuple, one is list, and let me see the size of this objects. So there is a function called size of. Okay, and it's a dunder. So I'll explain you what is this. Okay, so don't worry about it. It's this kind of functions are known as dunder functions, and they are internal to the object. So whenever you create an object, these functions are internal, and you can actually call these functions uh, depend on your need. So I'll show you what are these and how to fetch this. So if I do this size, it actually returns me the size of the object. So you can see it's written me a 72. Now let me do it for the tuple also. So you can see like tuples are smaller in size, and lists are bigger in size. So it's better to use a tuple when you have static collections, but ideally list have more other features. Lists are variable in length, and tuple are fixed. List have more functionalities than tuples. So That is for you for list and tuple. Let us now go and try to see loops. Okay. So in programming language, loops are very important, and without loops, you cannot proceed with complex algorithms. So mind it, loops in Python are very expensive operations. Hence, you should use them wisely. Before going to loops, I want to talk about iterators and iterables. They are very, very important concepts. And I just don't want you to get those concepts later in the session. They are very, very important. Uh, so what is an iterable and what is an iterator? You need to understand these two concepts separately. Okay. So iterables are object which can return iterators. So then what is an iterator? Iterators are an object. Iterator are an object which can iterate through their content. Okay. So think about a list or a tuple or a string or any collections. All this data type represents a sequence of content. Okay. But are they iterables or iterators? That we need to find out. So let us try with a string. Let me name it Sabby. Okay. Now there is a function call. There is a dir function. Okay, which lists down all the attributes of the variable, and whether it's iterable or not, you will find out through a function known as iter. So there will be a function called dunder iter, and if it is there in your object, that means that object is a iterator. That means that object is a not iterator. That means that object is iterable. Okay, so let me show you that dirx, and this is the list of all the properties you will find, and you need to find out whether you have that iter. Can you identify the iter? Here. So here you can see the iter. I hope you guys can see the function iter here. Okay, so that means it is an iterable. Okay, so it's a homework for you guys to see whether a tuple or list is iterable or not. Okay, so the above output kind of suggests that a string object can return as a iterator, hence it is iterable. So for now, please assume whenever you will find an object supporting the dunder methods, it can be invoked by its name. Like iter can be invoked as iter. So like for example, you have seen this function, right? So this can be written as iter. Okay. So just be with me. So this iter function can be written as iter. Okay. So let's try it out. Let's see the iter object. So if I call this iter x and print this iter object, you can see it's a iterator. Str string iterator object at this. So so we can understand that the string is a iterator object now through the iter functions. So now let us do a dir over this iter object. Okay. And once I do it, I could see this object called next. Okay, keep this in mind. Apart from that, it is still iterator. So it is iterator because it's contain the iter function, as well as it has this next method. So if a object have this next method, that means it is an iterable. So you can iter it through the contents, and hence it is an iterable. So that can show you like few objects will be a iterator, but they will be not iterable because they don't have this next method in their object. Hence you cannot iterate through their items, but they are iterators. So you'll find this kind of objects very common in Python, and you need to be aware of these things, because iterators and generators are very frequently used in Pythons, and they are very good memory optimized way of looping through a collection. So let's go with the for loop now. Let me show you the for loop. For loop in range, suppose 10. Okay, and then I'm going to print one, two, yes, print item. So simple for loop, and you can see it got printed. So this range, if you're using version 2.x, then you need to use x range, because x range returns an iterator. But in Python 3.x, we have this range function optimized, and hence it's pretty performative. Okay, so we are good with this. Apart from this, let me show you that we can actually iterate through a string also. So for example, for item in x, now we all know x was savvy, like we have already initialized it uh, above. So let me print it, and you can see it got printed. So you can print a string also as a collection. Okay, apart from that, there is a while loop. Let me show you that also. So while y is more than 0, print y. So here I've done a big mistake. So when you're playing with while, um, uh, you need to manage uh, the exit of the loop. If you're not doing it, then you'll fall in something like this, in infinite loop. Okay, so what we can do is like, we'll do the same thing again, and we are going to print y. After that, we are going to decrease the y. Okay, and now you can see it got printed in a decreasing order. So apart from that, there are break and continue also in Python, where you can break through a loop or you can continue a loop. So let me show you those things also. So let me create a count variable, then let me create an infinite loop while true. Okay, and then let me print count. So it's going to print the count, and then let me increment the count. After that, if count is more than equal to 5, then break. Okay, let me see this. So it was an infinite while loop, and I just keep a condition here that whenever the counter will reach 5, break the loop, and it happened. So this is the way you can use break. Apart from that, there is another called continue. Okay, so let me run that also. For x in range 10, then if x modulo 2 is to 0, then continue and print x. So what is going to happen, that whenever you will get a even number, so x modulo 2 is kind of detecting whether this number is an even number or not. So with the even modulo of 2, you'll always get 0. Okay, so if it is an odd number, you'll get this print, but if it is an even number, it's not going to print the number. It's going to go back to the initial state. So you can see only the odd numbers got printed. The even numbers didn't print it, because I stopped the flow of the loop here itself, and I forced the loop to continue from the first. Okay. You can also use else with the loops also. So for example, let me again create this count. Okay, let me get another while loop, and now let me put a condition here. Count is less than 5. Let me print the count, and let me increment it so that, so there is a condition called else here. Okay, and it's going to print it. So whenever the condition will not meet, it's going to print this. So you can do it. So you can see we have done this. It looped through 0 to 5, and then when it reached 5, it didn't support this condition of count. It came to this else part and print the text. So you can do it through while loop. So there is one more question, like so that is for loop. Now we'll go with functions. What's the need of function? So the main logic of creating function is to make code snippets reusable. So I'll kind of go out of this terminal. So for that you need to press Ctrl Z and play it out, and I will go in my Visual Studio Code, and I'll try to continue your this session of functions in Visual Studio Code. So let me create some function. So to create a function, you need to write def. Def is kind of declaring a function or a defining a function. So let me give the name as greet. It doesn't take any parameters, and it's going to print something known as hello. Okay, and it's going to print my name. Okay, so how to call it? Like this. That's it. So if I click the run button, you can see hello Savvy output. Okay, clear it out. Okay, cool. So this is my first function. Now if you see, we have used print function to print the content. The difference between greet and print function is the print function accepts an argument, where greet function doesn't accept any argument. And there are a lot of different ways you can say can send parameters, or you can play with the parameters in a function in Python. So let us look now to a function where it takes some parameters. So for example, first name and last name. Okay, so it takes this couple of parameters, and I'm going to print first name, and then I'll give some space, last name. Okay, and okay, so that's it. And let me remove this one, I don't need. Okay, so now while calling, you can give my complete name and another string. Okay, now let's run it, and you can see it got printed. Okay, so apart from this, so what happens if we have just given the one parameter? So they're expecting two parameters, but suppose in your function while calling it, you are only aware of the first parameter, you are not aware of the second parameter. So if you call the function like this, it is going to throw an error because it's expecting a variable last name, but it didn't find it here. So there is a concept of kind of default parameters in function. Okay, So that you can do. So what you can do, you can put some default value here, and once you do that, even if you don't specify uh, the variable, it's going to take the default value and it's going to print it. So you can see it got printed. And if you print something else, it's going to take that. So it's going to take that. Okay. So there are two types of functions here. Like one perform some task and another is like return some value. Okay. So I think we all are kind of familiar. If you have any programming basics, you all be very familiar of how to return value. So let me return this thing. I'm returning this value to them, and let me store it in some variable. For example, result or something, and then I'm going to print this result. So through return, you can actually so hello. Okay. So apart from this, let me show you another trick here, and this will be interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to return anything. I'm just going to print the first name, for example. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to print the first name, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to print this output of the function. Okay, so keep in mind I'm printing it twice, once within the function, and once I've called this function, I'm going to print the result. Now this function is not returning me anything, so let me see whether I'll get an error or I'll get some output. And we can see I got two outputs. One is Sabyasachi and one is none. Sabyasachi is coming from here, and none is coming because this function is not returning anything. So by default, a function returns none. And if you specify something, it's going to return that. So keep that in mind, that by default, a function returns none, and you can actually take advantage of it depending on certain condition. You can actually detect whether a function has some return value or not. Okay, so now let us kind of have some examples regarding optional parameters. Okay, so optional parameters we have already seen here, like optional or default parameters that's kind of similar. Apart from that, there's a concept called star args and star kwargs. Okay, so you can actually can have anything here, like you can have argument or you can name it anything, but the condition is like you should have the star here. Okay, and let us print the content of this. Like I'm going to print this args here, and I'm going to print this krgs here. Okay, so and I'm going to call this greet with some value. Okay, so for example 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6 our name equals to savvy, or I can call as age equals to 100. Okay, so definitely if you see this, you'll feel like it's going to throw some error, because you can see here we have this args and quags, and the input and the function description doesn't match. But let us see what output we get, and your understanding will be more clear depending on the output. Oh, sorry, it should be star star. Yes. So see the output, you can see the output. When I put the print args, it printed me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's printed me all this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are nothing but keyword parameters, or you can tell like it's kind of positional parameters for me. Okay, and it converts them into a tuple and it returns me. So you can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All my position parameters got collected into a tuple, and then they print me through this args variable. And the quags, the start quags actually converts my key value, like my other named parameters within key value pair data structure, which are nothing but dictionary. So you can see a dictionary got written. What's the dictionary we will have explain in our next sessions, but keep in mind they are also part of collections. Okay, so quags actually convert your named parameters into dictionaries. And so if you're not sure about the input and if you want them to be a tuple, then you can use star args. And if you are know all your inputs will be keyword parameters, then you can use star quags. Normally it's kind of will convert all those keyword parameters into, or named parameters into dictionary. uh, but if you're not sure about which form the input will be, you need to use both args and quags. And this is kind of a pretty flexible approach of taking inputs uh, with a dynamic approach. Like you don't know what will be the input, and dynamically the input will come, and depend on the input you will take some actions. So for those kind of functions, quags and args are very, very useful. Okay, so that's from the function point. Feel free to go through python.org and go through these features in detail. Apart from this, let me show you how to create a customized module and how to use them in your code. Okay, so let me create a new file. I'll name it as a helper.py. And I'm going to write some function here. Okay, for example, func1. I'm going to print something else. This is func1. Okay, and I'm going to have another function known as func2. Okay, and I'm going to print this is func2. Okay, so that's it. I will save this file helper. Now in this python basics.py, I want to use those functions, and I want to call the helper functions here. So how to import it? So there are multiple ways you can import it. For example, you can import as import helper. Minded, this helper should be in the same folder structure, then only you can do it. Otherwise you need to specify the path with the dot and dot slash. So I can import a helper as h, or any other short name you feel like, and then I can call this. You can see I got the IntelliSense func1 and the func2. Like I got the complete access of this of that file. Whatever functions got defined there, I can access them, and if I run it actually executed. Now suppose there are around millions or hundreds of functions are there in that file, and you only want one or two function, and you don't want to load the whole file because it's going to increase your file size also. So for those kind of scenario, there is another option, that is from helper import func1, and then you can actually only use, oh sorry, not h, I don't need the h anymore. So if you run this, you can see this is func1 got printed, and while printing the func2, it got an error because it was not loaded. So if you want the func2 also, you can have a comma separated func2, and you can have that function also. So if you run it, it got printed. So this is way you can actually create custom modules, and you can actually import them in your main function and use them. uh, Normally a module contains complex classes with lot of methods, and sometimes we don't need the whole module to get imported. We just need a specific function or a specific method to import. So for that you need to use this syntax to import those kind of features. But if you want the complete file, you can go for import helper, and you can use them in your file. So that's it for me for today. uh, Thanks for coming and joining. If you like my video, please put a thumbs up. It gives of immense motivation and pleasure also. If you have any questions, you can put it in the comment sections. And if you face any problem or any understanding problem, uh, please mention that in the comments, and do subscribe us for more uh, insightful videos like this down the line. Thank you everyone. Thank you for your